So that's where there is a need to take the time and look at each job posting, specifically make sure that your resume is speaking to that experience.
Because I know that there are people that have lost their job based on social media posts.
That's true. And what you're prepping on is the art of storytelling. And that doesn't really come naturally to some. It's what we call STAR method.
Well, there we are. So imagine. I wonder what I haven't seen about Hallie's life because she's smart enough to just not post about it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Game Changer Podcast. My name is Michelle Dutro. I am your host, and let me tell you why this episode is my most favorite of any I have ever done. First of all, if you're tracking, this is episode 150. So this is really an important episode for me. I know Hallie didn't know that, and it's important also because I think that in today's current situation of life, there are a lot of people unhappy, a lot of people wishing they had a better job, a lot of people wishing they had a job, a lot of people thinking, I wish I had advice to get a job because I can't seem to. I have the expert of all experts here, and the real reason why I am most excited for today's show is because this expert on show 150 happens to be my daughter, Hallie. So here we go. Let me introduce you to Miss Halle Dutro. She is a recruiting practice lead and talent acquisition manager. She partners with top organizations like Amazon and Microsoft to help them find and onboard the right talent. At just 28, Hallie, I think you're 29. Are you 29?
28.
Okay. Probably should ask that before we started.
29.
Okay, no. Okay. All right. Yep. All right. So she's an amazing daughter. I didn't say I was so great at being a mom. At 28, Hallie's already built an impressive career leading teams, managing large-scale recruiting operations, and developing strategies to connect the right people with the right opportunities. She's going to help you with that today. Her career journey began in sales, where she learned the grit and resilience it takes to thrive in fast-paced environments. She then moved into recruiting, where she quickly rose through the ranks, first as a recruiter, then as a senior account manager, and now as a leader guiding others in talent acquisition. Along the way, she's interviewed countless candidates, worked closely with hiring managers, and developed a unique perspective on what really works in today's job market. In this conversation, we'll talk about Hallie's insights into the current state of hiring, what candidates can do to stand out, and how to set reasonable expectations during a job search. We'll also explore her personal journey, what it's like to step into leadership at a young age, life lessons and values that shaped her, and advice she has for both job seekers and parents raising the next generation of professionals. Welcome, Miss Halle Dutro, to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Episode 150. I did not know that. You didn't tell me.
I know. I'm so excited. Yes, episode 150. So we are going to launch, and we didn't really review this. So who knows what's going to happen? I did tell her before I hit record that I don't edit any of my episodes. So whatever whatever happens. And so we're just going to get started, Miss Hallie. I know, as well as obviously you know, because it's your job, that there are a lot of people looking for work right now.
There definitely are.
And I know that everybody also knows that coming into fourth quarter, there are companies that are still cutting back, laying off, downsizing. I know that companies at this time of year have to prepare their numbers, have to report to the board of directors. And so when numbers have to look good, we cut down the workforce to make numbers look better. So times are tough. And so hopefully that this episode will be some help for somebody who, like I said, maybe is out of work looking for a job or is thinking, I wish I could find a better job, or I'd like to find a way to better myself to get out there in the world. All right. With that, Hallie, what do you think companies are really looking for in today's job market?
Yeah. Well, the market, you said it yourself, is really tight right now. So there's more candidates on the market than there are jobs. So I think it's one thing to have all of the skills on your resume and you're lining up to what that specific job opening is looking for. But that's what gets you into the interview, right? You know, the job posting can list out that it needs XYZ skills, but each person needs to make sure that they're catering their resume exactly to what that exact opening is for. Now, with that being said, it does have to be tangible. You actually had to have done that because that will get you to the interview, right? But the next hurdle is it has to be a culture fit. When you're in the interview, similar to here we are today, it has to be conversational. It's all about the act of storytelling, getting to know what you've done, why you've done it that way, how you did it, and then the biggest thing is the impact that you made. So, I'd say it's two-prong is how do you get into the interview? And that's really making sure your resume is catered to that specific job opening. But then two, making sure that you can articulate the scope and why it's important, but then also having the human touch. Are you someone that they're going to want to have coffee with or go out to lunch with? Can you fill the gap that they're needing on their team? Can you be just a great add to their team? So I'd say, honestly, a lot of different answers you could probably say there.
So let's talk about the resume side because, back in the day, I don't know what day this was. Probably this never applied, but I'm going to say it anyway because I know a lot of people think this works and maybe it never worked. And that is, I'm just going to hit the button and send my resume to 100 people a day
Yep.
and think that something's going to work. And to your point, I didn't line up the words on the resume with the exact keywords that are in the job description.
Yep.
That matters. Cover letters, right? If somebody's actually, if it made it through some AI tool or some screening computer tool that a human being actually is looking at your resume, does it look like you're putting forth the effort? And how important, just on the resume side alone, and what advice or tips do you have? Because I'm sure you've seen amazing resumes and you've seen things that you're going, it doesn't
Whoa.
look like you spent 5 minutes
Whoa.
on this. So if somebody's going, holy cow, maybe that's my problem. What's some advice just on the resume part that somebody could do to improve that?
Yeah, and I think the first thing you said though, it is quality over quantity. You shouldn't necessarily be applying to every single thing quick ad, getting 100 applications out. It should be the quality to what you're sending over, but when you're looking at each job description, let's just say you found out your dream job, right? You're probably wanting to read through that whole job posting from start to finish. See what grabs your attention. What's in the required skills? What's in maybe in those preferred skills? Go back to your resume, make sure that there's a few buzzwords that are pulling maybe directly from that job description. It could be a similar word, but it does need to pull because we are living in an AI driven world these days, so that it's maybe not necessarily a person on the back end that's reviewing your resume, but maybe it's AI. And you know what AI is doing is they're pulling out all of the keywords that maybe someone needs to have from that job posting and making sure that a resume has that as well. Uh, AI is smart enough that if it's not the exact same word, it can pull out similarities. So that's where there is a need to take the time and look at each job posting, specifically make sure that your resume is speaking to that experience.
So I'm curious, besides just resumes, and I really don't know the answer to this. I didn't ask Hallie this ahead of time, but I am just curious, not only for you, Hallie, but other recruiters that you know, because I know you know a lot of recruiters. Do people go looking for individuals on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
So recruiters are actively, besides taking in resumes, doing searches on LinkedIn?
you should always network first. I would say yes, people are doing it, maybe not as many as they should, but a lot of the times that's how you can be seen versus competing against hundreds of other applicants. Maybe you just need an internal referral to get you through the door. That doesn't mean you're going to get the job, right? Like you still have to interview and have all of those soft skills, but it can at least bypass some of the things that we have to find candidates.
So
So
how important is the LinkedIn page? Like, do you ever actually look at somebody's LinkedIn page? Look at it?
every time.
Every time. So if you're looking at Betsy Sue Johnson, you're looking and she's applying for, I don't know, sales for, let's just call it Amazon. I don't know what she wants to sell at Amazon,
Sure.
something. And you look at her LinkedIn page and she's only ever been, customer service answering phones. And it has
Mhm.
literally nothing to do with this job. And her resume looks completely different from her LinkedIn page. Do you ask someone about that, or do you just hit the skip button? How
Yeah.
relevant is that?
I'd say it's very relevant that your resume matches your LinkedIn. If there is discrepancies, then that would be an immediate red flag, right? Then you're already starting off the foot on there's no
Looking weird.
trust. Right. Yeah, there's no trust. So I would be like, okay, that's peculiar. And to your point, I would most likely move on. If maybe I reached out to a candidate first and then I came across the LinkedIn and then there was disparities, I would of course follow up and inquire about that, dig a little bit deeper. But no, I mean the resume needs to be in alignment with your LinkedIn, what you're putting out there.
Okay, curiosity. How much does social media matter? Do you know if other recruiters out there, and I don't know if it's at a certain stage of your career or your life, but are people searching? Let's go again with Betty Sue. Are they looking at Betty Sue's Instagram and Facebook and where and how she shows up in social media? Because I know that there are people that have lost their job based on social media posts.
That's
Um,
true.
can that keep you from getting a job? Is there stuff, if you're out partying every day of the week and I don't know, it's a Wednesday afternoon and you're off doing tequila shots and posting about that. I don't know what people do,
I
but
probably
does it
would be doing
matter?
that, but I love that. Live your life. You do you. I would say I do not take that much of a deep dive, but if I had the bandwidth, maybe I would. But I'm not searching high and low on people's what they're
Okay.
putting out there. But that's not to say that other people aren't. I have heard of some organizations who do take a look at that, and their offers have been rescinded because what they see out there, or even have lost their jobs because what they're posting, not only on LinkedIn, but to your point on TikToks, on Instagram Reels, you name it, because it's not in alignment to maybe that company's culture or their values. So I would always say, hey, maybe err on the side of caution. Maybe don't be posting what you'd want the general public to see. Maybe a better rule of thumb is if you don't want your parents to see it, maybe it shouldn't be posted at all.
Oh, there we are. So imagine. I wonder what I haven't seen about Hallie's life because she's smart enough to just not post about it. So there, that is a that is a good rule of thumb. Oh, that's funny. Um, all right, but it is very true, right?
Yeah,
Just no different than putting things in writing. If you don't want that published on the cover of the New York Times,
right.
don't be just be mindful. And in today's day and age, you don't know what's going to matter. You
Yeah,
don't know if you're between 1 and 2 and they're looking at what makes me choose between Betty and Sally. You don't want it to be, you know,
no,
shots on a
mindful, I think
Wednesday.
is the best way to put it.
Yeah, be very mindful. Okay, what what are some things that someone can do to stand out? They've improved their social media. They've made sure that there's nothing crazy. They've made
Sure.
sure things are in alignment. They've made sure that their resume is not only aligned with what LinkedIn says, but aligned with what they've actually done.
Right.
You can't just say I've done all this and you've actually never had that job. Are there other things that somebody can do to make themselves stand out? I have heard people say, I'm going to physically mail my resume in instead
Mm.
of hitting email. I'm going to, I don't know, send somebody flowers. I don't know what people do. But is there anything you touched on looking through your network and seeing who you know? Maybe you don't realize you know somebody at the company from college or whatever. But what
Right.
are some things that people can do to try to get ahead of the 500 other people applying for the same job?
Right. Yeah, if not the resume and applying, then it is all about networking and who you know. But sometimes you might not even need to know someone. Maybe you're going on LinkedIn and you can usually see who posted the job, or you look at the company, look who's a hiring manager or a recruiter, I mean, it might specifically say you never know what on the opening on who is hiring for it. Look to see if you have any similarities with that person. Oh, looks like we used to work at X, Y, and Z. Or, oh my gosh, we used to go to this school. Or, oh my gosh, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. Funny enough, what are the odds? Speaking of, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, take you out to coffee, get to know your background more, because I'm really interested in joining your company. So you don't have to necessarily know someone. It doesn't have to be uh, it can be more of like I'm kind of trying to think of like the proper phrase, like a cold call, like you might not know someone, but it doesn't have to be so cold. It can be you can warm it up with any sort of similarity on anyone on LinkedIn. I'm sure you can connect with someone on that
So, do you get emails directly? Like, has somebody reached out and said, "Hey, Hallie, whatever. I see we both went to Cal Poly," or
all the time.
And you actually respond to those people like, "Oh my goodness, that's great,"
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
respond, and the same thing, that's how I reach out to candidates, though, too, if there's similarity, so it goes both ways. So,
Okay.
yeah, you
All
can
right.
network that way and or, like, a referral. Let's just say you know someone that works at this company or you know of someone who any sort of someone, they can refer you in like, hey Michelle, I saw you used to work at this company. I'd love to learn more, from you if you have a few minutes. So it
Okay.
can be anything
Perfect.
like that.
Okay, let's look at the things when things don't work out. So, what feedback have you received where you've sent someone forward for an interview?
Sure.
You thought they absolutely have the resume, everything about them, they got the interview, and they bombed. And you
Right.
hear the feedback of, I don't know why you sent, Sally Diddley Bob my way because that was horrible. So,
Yeah.
what is the feedback that you most common, if you would say, when things are going to fail? Why do people bomb in an interview when this is a job they truly should have gotten?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to interview preparation. Right. There needs to be a few hours, 10 plus hours, which sounds like a lot in terms of interview prep. And what you're prepping on is the art of storytelling. And that doesn't really come naturally to some. It's what we call STAR method: situation, task, action, result. I usually couldn't, I probably, if I were in someone's shoes, I couldn't riddle off that acronym in real time. So that's why I like to remember it as a story: beginning, middle, and end. If you hit on all those components, you're probably in pretty good shape. But then you have to go the extra layer that it needs to be pretty detailed. What were you doing? Why are you sharing this story? What was the scope? What was the impact? But what happened at the end? Like, why are you sharing this? What did you learn from that scenario? What did the company do because of this situation you're sharing? So it really is the art of storytelling, and it does take a lot of time to master it, but practice makes perfect. So that's where it's not because of maybe the skills, because to your point, that got them into the interview. It's just not being able to articulate what you were doing in your past in the form of a story.
Perfect. And, I think that is a great life lesson, regardless even of interviewing, right? If you're talking to somebody and you say, oh my gosh, whatever your comment is, and someone says, oh my gosh, tell me more about that. Or how did that happen? Or, oh my goodness, say more. And then you're just floundering kinda dead in the water.
You get
It ju
lost.
it looks it looks weird. It looks like or were you lying? Are you making that up? Because I would think if that thing happened, you would have every detail of what happened. So but to your
100%.
point, a lot of people just get flustery and,
Yeah.
lose their way, and so I know, way back in the day, because I love interviewing, you know this. If I could just interview as a way of life, I would just go interview if that was a paid
I
job.
know. I think everyone would like to take a page out of your book.
I love it. I love well, I podcast now. I love talking to people. I love learning about people. I love the art of the conversation. But that said, I remember back in the day when people used to really struggle with interviewing, and I would say, go interview for jobs you don't really want because it's practice. And so if you only ever interview for the most important job ever, if you've never had real life practice, it's very hard. Here's what it's hard. It's hard to practice with a friend. It's hard to practice with your recruiter. It's hard to practice with your roommate because there's
Right.
nothing on the line. It's not formal. It doesn't feel the same. Versus walking
Right.
in, here's some other job, maybe for a call center, and that's not the job you want, but it gets you to think about what am I wearing? How am I carrying myself? What questions are they asking? And it's a very real thing. Now, maybe you wind up loving the job, who knows, whatever. But what I'm saying is, I'm gonna make this into dating. What do they say? Go out on a few first dates if you haven't
Yeah.
dated for a long time,
See what happens.
and just yeah, get back used to having the chitter chat of what it's like to be in real time conversation. So, all
Yeah,
right,
I
perfect.
think so. And I think there's also a certain degree of nerves, right? Like some folks just get really nervous in an interview. But what I always say to candidates is, at the end of the day, everyone wants the same thing. Like me as a recruiter, I want you to get the job. The candidate, whoever's on the marketplace, probably wants the job. The person that's interviewing you also wants you to have the job. They don't want to keep on interviewing to interview because that's a lot of time out of their day. So long as, your resume got you through the doors, but so long as you're conversational, you can speak to what you've done in your past, you're personable, you're human, then it's probably a shoo-in. You just have to go in there with confidence and believe that, hey, you can do this job. You're a perfect fit for the job. Just speak to who you are, and then honestly, you'll hopefully get the position. But don't come for me if you don't. But
Oh,
I
we're
don't
going to
know.
give you Hallie's contact information at the end so you can come for Hallie and say, Hallie, all your tips failed me.
Yeah,
But yes, you are absolutely right. And here's also the thing that I believe in. Call it out. If you're nervous, just say, I'm so sorry. I'm just so nervous right now.
because I'm so
You
excited
know,
to be here.
yeah, just say it. It's okay. To Hallie's point, everybody's human, and they don't have the time to interview 5,000 people. It's not their goal to turn you down.
Right.
So just say that. Just say, "Oh my gosh, I'm just a little flustery here," and then say your piece. It's okay. There's nothing. There's nothing
And
wrong with
who's
that.
not nervous? Maybe you wouldn't be nervous, but most people, I usually think that shows that you care and you're interested.
Yeah.
If you're not a little bit nervous, then maybe that's cause for alarm. Maybe that job's not necessarily for you, unless you're an expert interviewer like you are.
Well, no, unless you just, love the conversation, but it's fair and the person should recognize that as well.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, Hallie, someone's got the job. We're going to just touch on this because I do have a couple of examples myself.
Oh.
But whether it's at companies you've worked in, so this could be within your own company, or somebody has gotten a job and then gotten let go from the job.
Sure.
So people that don't work out. What are some things, some advice, tips that you would give anybody? And here's who I want to speak to because I'm gonna throw out my couple of cents on this one too. You're in a job that you don't like. It
Mhm.
doesn't thrill you, right? Maybe you got into it and it was not what you had wanted, or you've been in it too long, but you just don't like your job.
Sure.
What is the advice that you would give somebody? And I'll go first just to get this thing flowing so you know what I'm talking about. The advice that you would give somebody that's in that life right now where they're thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can't living for the weekend. I hate my job. I hate it. I stare at the clock all day. Sometimes I think it moves backwards." What is the advice you would give somebody in the interim of them getting a different job? I will go first.
Okay.
Here's one. Here's one. If whoever you speak to as your job, right? You're in customer service, or like you're a recruiter, so you're talking on the phone to various people, or it's even internally within your own company. If you could imagine that every single conversation you have, that person owns a company and they are on the lookout for an amazing employee.
Hmm.
They're not interviewing you because it's just your job. Maybe you're a server at a restaurant, right?
Hmm.
But if every person you talk to, you could imagine they own the most incredible company and they have a job opening that is your absolute dream job, and it is solely based on the interaction that you're having with them at that moment, that phone call, that, like I said, you're a server, you work at a retail store, and it's that customer who's you're just showing them shoes,
Hmm.
whatever it is. If everything that you had was on the line based on that interaction, I would bet you that interaction would look a whole lot different.
Right.
If you took it to that level, if you took it to that person owns, they're a billionaire, they own a huge company, and they're always on the lookout for amazing people, how would you show up in that conversation? Even if it's the same thing, you don't like your job, you don't want to be there, but if you thought that in the back of your head, every single interaction you had would be different.
Right.
And here's my point, you never know.
You never know.
You never know who is on the other end of a phone call, who you're interacting with. You don't know one of your coworkers leaves Hallie and goes work for some big firm and then calls you and says, Hallie, because they knew
Yep.
you were always amazing, right? And they
Yep.
never even knew you didn't like your job, but they
Right.
knew you showed up every day playing full out no matter what. So there's my one that if you're in
Hmm.
a miserable job, the reality is treat every single thing as though it's the most important conversation you could ever have because you never know. And by the way, it really does matter how you show up in this lifetime.
Yeah.
And it will change your flow of your day, how you feel when you bring that level of energy versus bringing that level of dread, it
Yeah.
changes everything. Truly. Okay, there's mine.
No need to be negative.
No,
Wanna get
not
negative Sally.
no, there's no need for that. Hallie, what advice do you have for the person that's in a job that they hate right now and they don't know how they're going to keep suffering through it?
I'd say you probably need to find something that you enjoy about your job. There has to be at least one thing. Is it the duties? Is it the people? But I don't know if I'd have anything else besides what you have to say. I'm a big proponent of showing up positive and inclusive and being nice to others. And if you're coming to work with negative or maybe toxic energy, then it just spreads and it feeds to everyone around you. And you don't want to be the root cause of that. So, unfortunately, I don't have another piece of advice except for, hey, you probably need to find something that you do enjoy, which I'd have to say you probably have something that you do like. And then just feed into that. Remember that. And or if there's something that you are really not liking about your job, is there opportunity for you to change that around? If you don't like this one specific task you're doing, can you ask to change that? Can you do something different? Can you take on more responsibility? Can you switch to a different team? There is so many different opportunities for you to change your day around, but you can't blame it on the circumstances around you.
Perfect. And let me tell you, so I am using what I call the Hallie mug here today to drink my water. That's this one right here.
True.
Always believe that something wonderful is about to happen because that is Hallie's advice on all things. Hallie is of that. What's that emotion movie? Hallie.
Oh, what is that? With,
Uh,
with
uh,
joy.
Joy. Hallie lives joy. You know,
Ugh,
there's anger and
sadness.
sadness and all of them. Hallie lives that character, always has. So let's transition into parenting advice because it is how you've always shown up from the beginning. There is no doubt about it. Hallie has
Sure.
always had a good attitude, always positive, always looking to help somebody else out. The amount of calls that I got all through school from the vice principal saying Hallie was seen today picking up her tray, leaving her friends, and sitting with somebody who was sitting alone. It's just who she is. So if you were to imagine going back, Hallie, and you can rat me out. It's all right. Whatever, whatever the stories are that got you to where you are today. So if there is a parent right now listening and they have somebody that's elementary school, middle school, high school, maybe it's too late. You missed the opportunity. But if somebody does have a child they're raising and they
Mhm.
want them to be positive and a positive contributor and want to do well in life, what are some things that happen in your life that you would say lent itself to that helped you to maintain a positive outlook and to be positive and to want to be a good contributor in society?
Yeah. A lot of different answers for this. And I'll probably say a few different things. But I mean, growing up, my parents are both very positive, very empathetic, very kind, like always put others people before themselves. And then I would say are the definition of just really great work ethic, like following and chasing their dreams. So I was always surrounded by that. So growing up, like if that's the atmosphere I'm in, how could I not want to exhibit those traits and try to be like that? But you also gave me the opportunity to be really independent and try out different things and if I wanted to quit, I could quit. I mean, my goodness, I did T-ball. I wanted to play in the sandbox. I did gymnastics, fell off the beam, quit that. Then I got into crew. You'll hear a kind of a continuous trend here. I'm no sporty person, was the worst person, did it for years, not that great. But I tried, and I was given the space to go try out all of these things, see if I wanted to do it, if I didn't, but always put my best foot forward. And they always said, hey, if you're going to go do something, you have to give, 100% effort, which I always did. So I would say it was because of the space and the atmosphere I grew up in. We just spoke about negative energy. There was only positive energy and just always wanting to chase your dreams and just having really, really, really good work ethic. And I think that's probably something that's missing in today's climate for some, and that's okay. But everyone's a little bit different. I think it really stems into the individual. As a leader, sometimes I can't want something more than someone wants it for themselves, and that's a thing that I've had to really grow accustomed to over the years. But that's probably the same thing for parenting. You can't want something more than I want it for myself. If you wanted me to be, let's just say, varsity or something, that wasn't going to happen. I don't have that skill. But, you could say, hey, just always try your best and put your best foot forward if you're going to go out and do it, which I did and I tried. So, I, does that hopefully answer it?
It does. And I'll send you $20, Hallie, for being so kind after this podcast. So checks in the mail. I appreciate that. And I will piggyback on that because she has an older sister, Madison. And one thing that I appreciate most about, well, there's a lot of things, but another thing that I appreciate most about both of you is the lack of complaining. Is that just was not how you were raised. There's just no such thing as whining and complaining and, oh, I've got it so hard and, whatever it is. I remember one of my favorite stories, you and Madison both road crew. And remember, this story came from Madison where she came back one day and said, oh, you should have seen Hallie again today, was at her finest. I said, oh, what happened? And she said,
Oh, no.
well, they were carrying, they carried boats on their shoulders, the whole team. And somebody, it was a guy.
I'm nervous to hear
Complaining, well, I too that the boat was too heavy, and it was a guy complaining, and Hallie yelled like you couldn't even see all the way to whoever it was, 5 or 6 people ahead of her. There's just no complaining in crew. Carry your own weight. And I thought, oh well, that's perfect. And then another one was somebody saying they had just started. I think Hallie had been rowing now for at least a year or two, and it was their first, maybe it was even their first day out, and they came back whining and crying, saying that they either needed gloves or something to put over their hands because their hands were getting blisters and bleeding. And Hallie barked at him, there's no crying in crew and there's also no gloves. Buck up. And I thought,
Oh, yikes.
yeah, no, but you know what? Here's a little bit of what's missing. We have turned into a society where everyone gets an award. Everybody gets everybody. It's not just a participation where everybody's in first place. And you know what? That's not life.
No.
And now those young kids, unfortunately, are applying for jobs thinking that they're just automatically going to get the job. They're automatically going to rise to the top. And now they're finding, wow, life is actually a little challenging.
It is hard.
Yeah, and it's hard. And there's no gloves. And you're going to get blisters. And they're going to bleed. And you're going to have to tough that out until you have calluses and they don't bleed anymore. But that's from work. And so I would agree with you wholeheartedly because I've seen it myself in many positions that I've had. I've seen it here at the retreat center. Hiring people for help is the effort that you choose to put in is so indicative of how your life is going to go. And it's in everything. I don't care if you're hired to pull weeds or you're hired to be in sales for Amazon. Everything matters. Your energy matters. And so, as we are wrapping this up, Miss Hallie, if you were to give one last piece of advice, someone is listening, they want a new job, or they want to get a job, or life's just not going well, and Monday is coming up, and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to try something different that hopefully gets me one step further. That we haven't talked about yet, if that exists. What is any other tip that you would have for anyone out there to help make the remainder of this year, let alone hopefully setting 2026 up for success? What is that?
I'd probably say, and this kind of probably sums up everything we've already said so far, that how you do something matters a lot more than what you do specifically. So it's how you're showing up, how you're caring about people, how you handle tough situations, how you handle pressure. A lot of time, like the titles, your job title can change. So many things can change, but everyone's going to remember how you made them feel and your character and how you acted in these different situations. So I would just encourage to maybe take a check-in with yourself, seeing how you are showing up in the world, the energy that you're coming with, and maybe you're doing a wonderful job, or hey, maybe there's opportunity for you to grow in other areas, and it can make you a more well-rounded person.
Beautiful. That was a Maya Angelou quote
It
that
is.
Hallie just rattled off. People won't remember what you did, they won't remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel.
That's the
So
exact quote that I always live by.
I know, Hallie, you embody it like nobody's business. If somebody's listening, if you are in the Pacific Northwest, I don't know if you're anywhere, drop Hallie a line. Hallie, because Hallie knows a lot of recruiters. Hallie knows a lot of people elsewhere and can hopefully say, hey, reach out to this person or try that or whatever it is. Because I know Hallie's just got a lot of time on her hands and wants to help. So there we are. Miss Hallie, if somebody wants to find you, certainly on LinkedIn. I'm assuming you're just on LinkedIn under Halle Dutro.
No, I have a different name. No, I'm just pulling your arm. And my LinkedIn and my name don't match. No, it's just Halle Dutro.
And that's Halle. I'm going to put that in the show notes link as well so that you can find her. And she already said that she responds to people. So if you're looking for some assistance in the work world, please reach out to Miss Hallie. She truly does care, and she will at least guide you in a right direction if who she recruits for is not a fit. So that said, Hallie, I do close every show with the same question for everyone. So, Miss Halle Dutro, what is one thing that you absolutely believe to be true?
Good question. I would probably say the quote again by our girl Maya, but if not, I would probably just say to be nice to one another. Keep it simple.
That is the golden rule. I love that, Miss Hallie. It is how you live your life, for the record. And I'm not just saying it because Hallie's here. I say it all the time to everybody. Hallie is truly the most thoughtful, kind, generous human being. Not just daughter. Her sister Madison has a whole different set of attributes that I would list off if Madison was here today with us. But she truly is the kindest, most thoughtful human on the planet. And you are an inspiration. You always have been, but you are an inspiration
Thank
to
you.
me to be a better, kinder, nicer, more thoughtful person. And so I appreciate you being my daughter, and you certainly being on this show today.
Thank you. Well, I must have learned it from someone, and it
Oh
must have
my.
been you.
Well, you know what? I'm sure because your sister's older, she was also a big help. I love you, Miss Hallie. And
Love
if
you.
Madison was here, we'll drag her out sometime.
She'll come on.
She'll come on. She, in high school, got most likely to wind up on Saturday Night Live. So Madison, with her wit and her charm and her spontaneity and also never complaining, charisma, she is magnetic and has more friends and a magnet to people, also an inspiration beyond measure. So I am blessed to have you both in my life, and truly, from the bottom of my heart, Hallie, thank you for the person that you are and for being here on the show with us today.
Thank you. Happy 150 episodes. Such an honor being here.
Oh, thank you, Miss Hallie, and thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of the Game Changer Podcast.